right, the Sixers, having lost 6 of their last 8 games, going up against the third-place team in the Eastern Conference, the New York Knicks, will have their hands full. It does look like they are getting some reinforcements back. That is great to see. I am Derek Bodner, joined by Rich Hoffman. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers pregame show, presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app and use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. And Rich, this season has certainly not been ordinary.
No, it never usually is, Derek.
No, but this is definitely unique even for their standards.
Is uniquely not ordinary. Yeah. Well, look, I think we can at least hope that tonight's game is a little more watchable than last night's game.
Yes, it does.
Now the bar is the floor there.
Yeah.
So let's lay it out.
You weren't excited when they pulled it within 4 late in the fourth quarter?
I was actually kind of excited, but I had seen those games plenty of times before, and you just knew, okay, the Thunder are actually going to start trying a little bit here.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed Justin Edwards last night.
Yeah.
Credit to that young man.
Yes. No, and especially for a guy who came in, it was questionable, I think, probable. Either way, he was on the injury report, which, as we know, means that there is like a 10% chance you're actually going to play. Although we did get some good news, like I said, here on today's injury report. We'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, I think if you would have just told me this is who they have, this is who they're playing, last night was probably they played better than I think you would have expected. It's a lot more just the
overall team.
Yeah.
The overall direction.
Yes. And when you looked at the schedule and you looked at the opportunities they had here over the last week or two, and you look at what they have in front of them, it is looking pretty dire. And they are, we'll get to the full injury report here in a bit. They are playing this one without Joel Embiid. He was ruled out earlier today. They're going up against a team in the New York Knicks who not only knocked them out of the playoffs last year, but are the third best team in the Eastern Conference. They have the number 2 offense in the league. And I guess we'll just start it off with what's kind of like surprised you about the Knicks? How do you think they've played? How do you evaluate them as a matchup?
Well, what has not surprised me is that, and Devon and I were talking about this after last night's game, is that they play their guys a lot of minutes, Derek.
Yes.
Do you know who their coach is by any chance?
I do. Tom Thibodeau likes that.
They have been remarkably healthy for most of the year. Now, obviously, they really haven't had, I don't think Robinson's played at all yet so far, but their top 5 guys, and that is Brunson, Bridges, Hart, Anunoby, and Towns. Those guys have played a lot of basketball. It feels like they are the bizarro Sixers in that sense. The offense is really good. Now, we won't see Towns tonight, right?
He's out.
But, I think you could see that when you have Towns and Brunson and you run the 2-man game, Towns at the 5, that's a problem. He only shoots what does he shoot? Like 5 or 6 threes per game. For being considered the greatest shooting big man of all time, which is a label that I think he has given to himself more than anybody else, but a very good shooter. He actually doesn't take a ton of threes, at least for that label, but teams respect him out there. And it's clear that the rest of the Knicks, there's a lot of room to operate, man. And you think over the years, those Tibbs teams, those Tibbs Bulls teams in particular, it was defense first and, toughness and all of those things. And the Knicks, they still have some toughness, but the offense is their calling card so far this year.
Yeah, no, and it is, it's weird because on the one hand, they knocked the Sixers out in large part because they're rebounding. You associate that a lot with defense. They've been a sort of middling defensive team, but they have, I think Towns has just been a really almost perfect fit for what they needed to make. He's the type of player who makes every player's job just 10% easier. And the cumulative effect of that has been really eye-opening with them this year. They have been really tough, really consistent. I think they jumped out. They've been the top 2 or 3 ranked offense pretty much the entire year, pretty much from the get-go, and they've maintained that. I think a lot of people were really skeptical. But yeah, they're just going to be a real tough out, and they would have been a tough out even if the Sixers were at full strength. They're obviously nowhere near it. Now, that being said, the loss of Towns is obviously big, but they have enough firepower. And the Sixers, we've seen this play so many times where, you've got Maxey, you've got Paul George. Can that be enough to win games, even against poor teams, much less a team as good as the Knicks? It's been a challenge. I guess I'll start this off because we're talking about this in the PHLY Discord.
I like, by the way, that Jeannie said that the cat can wear his Eagles shirt for tonight's game. Karl Anthony Towns, a very big Eagles fan. He makes it known. Jalen Brunson, also a very big Eagles fan as well. Give those guys credit for dunking on their local market because their football teams are not as good. Yeah. I mean, Jalen Brunson, he was making fun of Dallas when he was there too.
Yeah.
I guess he just needs to be a wizard next.
All right. So Sixers record without Embiid has not been great. I don't actually have it right in front of me. It's not good.
It's bad.
It's bad. What do you think is the biggest reason they haven't been able to take care of business? Like I said, even against like teams like the Wizards, where the game is super close and much closer than you think. What do you think they need to do to tread water while they wait for their big guy?
I mean, I think it's a lot of things, but I liked your podcast with Kyle. I got to it on Monday because I was still basking in my Birds win on Sunday night after watching the Magic game on Monday and listening to the pod, where you guys have pointed out they just don't have enough guys. Like, they just don't have enough consistent NBA role players. They are playing too many guys who can really just give you nothing on a general night. And that leaks into some of the frustration that we have with Maxey and George, because those guys kind of got to be perfect.
Yeah.
Not perfect, but they have to be consistently really good in a way that is asking a lot of them. So it's a lot. I mean, I think they need better performances. I kind of wish Justin Edwards had saved his 25-point performance on efficient shooting for tonight's game, because, you know, who cares? They lose by 35 points last night. With Maxey and George in the lineup tonight, at least it's possible that they could get a win.
Yeah.
No cat. Yeah, I mean, I think they're just going to need better bench play. It's just a lot, even like last night. Just like a lot of Reggie Jackson. It's obviously been a lot of Kyle Lowry so far this year.
A lot of Jeff Doughton, and he had a decent enough game last night. I don't necessarily have a ton of confidence that will continue going forward.
The depth has been an issue, but obviously, you know, Tyrese and PG have had their moments where they have struggled as well. I don't think Nick Nurse has done a good job in a lot of these games. So, I mean, it's a lot of stuff, man. It's like they have a lot of issues, but I think the biggest one is that injuries, and at the end of the rotation, you're giving up a lot to these teams.
Yeah.
It's not the most advanced analysis in the world, but you look at the box scores after a lot of these games, and it's like, oh, the Wizards bench has 55 points tonight. The Sixers bench has 6 points tonight.
Yeah.
The Wizards, Derek.
No, yeah.
A lot of Wizards talk so far in the first 8 minutes. Oh, well.
Yeah. I was looking it up not too long ago, and in lineups with George and Maxey, but no Embiid, they're actually doing pretty well. I think they had like 120 offensive rating. They had like a +6-ish net rating. But when you take either one off, it's like a -7 net rating in either scenario, whether it is Paul George without Tyrese, whether it is Tyrese without Paul George. They just don't have the depth to compete when you take a star or at least a very good player off the floor. And next thing you know, everyone has to sort of like ramp up. They're not capable of doing that because of that. Teams blitz Tyrese, blitz Paul George.
Sure.
All of a sudden, their deficiencies, whether that's as a passer or as, you know, in terms of their first step, get enhanced. And it is a complete train wreck. And then, oh, by the way, you also have absolutely no rim protection. So if your offense, you know, stutters even a little bit, you're in a bad spot.
I love Yabu. It's been a tough week of rim protection for him.
Been a tough week, and it's not like Andre Drummond was fixing that either. Andre Drummond was really struggling for most of the year. He was actually playing a little bit better there towards the end. But yeah, he's been real bad for most of the year.
It's rough.
It's not great.
Yeah.
It's not great. All right. So
that's why, by the way, that's why the PG foul at the end of the first half against New Orleans.
Infuriating.
Paul, they can't survive.
It was a pure frustration foul too. And it wasn't even like the end of the first half. Wasn't there like 8 minutes left? It was something absurd. Like there was 8 minutes left in the half or something like that. He didn't get the call he wanted on the offensive end. Next thing you know, he just commits the dumbest foul you can imagine. And he's sitting for 8 minutes.
And I don't know if they have a staffer, you know, an analytics person telling them, you know, the stats with them on and off the court. But PG is a smart guy. He can notice, oh, yeah, we stink when it's just me or it's just Tyrese. We're going to be even worse when it's none of us. Yeah, it's some of those Nick Nurse lineups that he has to cook up are pretty rough. But in that case, he really had no choice.
Yep. All right, I think in terms of, let's go take a look at the injury report because it is extensive. Obviously, Joel Embiid is out. He was ruled out for earlier in the day. He was ruled out, as was Andre Drummond, Kyle Lowry, Caleb Martin, KJ Martin, and Jared McCain. The last two have been out for quite a while. Jared McCain will be out for the rest of the year. KJ Martin with the stress reaction. We don't know exactly when he will be back, but he has been out for a while.
New YouTube video Jared dropped today. He's on my algorithm.
Okay.
He's talking about his morning routine. I didn't watch the video, but I was just like, man, I miss watching you hoop, man.
Yeah. No, I
in part because I see a lot of guys who don't know how to dribble, who are the best players on this team.
Yeah. I remember right before he got injured, like almost right before he got injured, we did a show and it's like, all right, well, let's go through the lineups. And as we went through the lineups, and specifically like when you start staggering your stars, oh, Jared's actually like really important for every lineup that we're talking about. Every single one, a combination of his, on ball, just creation and competence, quite frankly, his off ball shooting. He is really, really important, which he shouldn't be because he was a rookie, really important for everyone, and for them to lose him. And all of a sudden, we're watching a lot of Reggie Jackson, of Eric Gordon, now of Jeff Doughton. It has been devastating.
It's been bad. Let me ask you kind of the broader question here, because I think for a lot of this year, especially in December when they had Joel for a few weeks there, and he would play 70% of those games at least, and they would win most of those. They kind of ran away from the bottom of the pack. I don't know, man. When you have the week that they had last week and the schedule that they are looking at now, are we going to get back into the convo of whether they should go up or they should be looking to
we will
to shut
have
it
that
down?
conversation. When you look at their schedule coming up, and we probably don't have too much time to get into it here, they have their next, however many, was it 13, 14 games between now and the All-Star and the trade deadline. If they win more than like 2 of them, I'd be kind of surprised. And that's in large part because there's so much uncertainty around Joel. But there's been uncertainty for quite a while. Yes, there's a little bit of uncertainty around Joel. And without him, you've struggled to beat pretty much everyone. If they go into the trade deadline and they're like 17-33 or whatever, yeah, those conversations are going to be real. You can look at it and look at the odds of getting like a number 1 pick or the odds of keeping the pick, and they might not be great, but the odds of anything good happening to this team right now are not great. So yeah, we will certainly have that conversation. I've resisted it all season. Earlier in the year, I was poo-pooing it pretty hard, and we had that show. And at the start of it, I pretty much said, like, hey, they're not going to tank. Like, this is all academic. Well, I still probably don't think they're going to take, because I don't think that's necessarily Daryl's mindset. But the conversation of whether or not they should, yeah, it's becoming real. It's becoming real.
They better turn it around in these next few weeks. And like you said, it doesn't look like there are many easy wins on the schedule.
No, there are not. Anyway, going back to the injury report, like I said, Drummond out, Embiid out, Lowry out, Caleb Martin out, KJ Martin out, and Jared McCain obviously out. We did get good news. Both Tyrese Maxey and Paul George will play.
That's good.
So that gives them a little bit of reinforcements.
It's going to be better than last night. Maybe.
Like I said, that has not been a guarantee here of late because they have played some games that they have really struggled. But those 2 being in give them a much better chance, especially when you combine that then with Karl Anthony Towns out. From the Knicks' perspective, Jalen Brunson is in. He came in questionable, I believe. Karl Anthony Towns, who also came in questionable, is out with a right thumb sprain. So that helps the Sixers' perspective.
Much easier to guard.
And obviously Mitchell Robinson out. That impacts their big man depth.
Yeah, they have a terrible bench.
Yeah. No, and
they're playing campaign heavy minutes.
Yeah.
Love campaign.
It would look real good. How many more wins do they have if they have campaign instead of Kyle Lowry?
It's crazy that you're saying that, but yeah, I was going to put the number at 2.
Yeah. And two wins right now would be pretty significant.
Oh yeah, I mean they'd be in the 10 spot,
and more importantly, they would just be a little bit more watchable. Which that would help my life out so much.
Can we talk about Joel, by the way? Like,
sure.
What is the explanation that they can have for calling him day to day this long of time? Like, if they would have told us last Monday, okay, he's going to be out for a week, he's going to be reevaluated next week, it just feels like they're stringing us along.
Yeah, look, if day-to-day lasts for 2 weeks, then your evaluation was wrong. And Kyle, actually, go to allphly.com. Kyle wrote a piece earlier today talking about some of the quotes over the last 2 weeks and the timeline of Joel's injury. He updated that with what Nick Nurse has talked about here today before the game. Nick basically said there was a setback. He doesn't entirely know where the setback was, when the setback was, or what happened, but there was a setback with the foot sprain, and here we are.
It's really rough.
The whole year has been really just awkward, and you don't get good explanations, and you don't know what's going on, and it's very, very frustrating.
Kyle had a very good rant. I think you were throwing paper at him while he was making that rant. He had a very good rant about kind of what a BS product that was on the court last night for fans. And Devon and I had not really gotten into that subject, but when Kyle made that point, on the one hand, I thought, okay, like resting PG and Maxey in a game that you really had no chance to win anyway. And with the national television rules as they are, like it completely makes sense to throw more of your resources at tonight's game. But yeah, it was pretty rough.
Yeah, and that's why,
If you bought a ticket, right?
I think yesterday I sort of had that same read. And quite frankly, I think that's probably, just from a game theory perspective, that's probably the right call, right? Sit everyone on that one, have them come back here. And I don't think they're necessarily sitting Tyrese just to give him rest like that. That hand sprain, I think, is legitimate.
No, I
and
think
trying
PG
to see what
was
he can
the
play
rest.
for. Yeah, I think PG. But then he came out, he was probable yesterday before being a late scratch. He came in questionable today. That kind of surprised me and threw me off, but he ended up playing. So, we're all good to go, I guess. But yeah, I thought that was a very clear, like, we're not winning this game. Keep him fresh for tomorrow. Luckily, he's still playing.
Yeah.
All right. I think we will, let's head to a break, and then we'll get to starting lineups and Rich's picks. We don't have a great alliteration for that one yet.
Gamblin Givens has been replaced for the night.
Yes. Yes, he is. He is at a family reunion. All right. First up, we want to tell you about Ace Hardware. At Ace Hardware Home Services, whenever they get ready for the next job, they remember what to bring. It's a key part of the job, I think. If you're going to try to win a basketball game, bring your big man center. At Ace Hardware, they follow through with that. They bring experience, local plumbers and techs that handle everything from repairs and seasonal maintenance to installation and upgrades. They bring understanding. They listen to your goals, and the job isn't completed until you're satisfied. And they bring helpful to your home so you can spend more of your time on the projects that really matter. Visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at www.acehardwarehomeservices.com to get you started on your next project.
And Derek, let's talk about our friends at Golden Nugget Jewelers. And when the Sixers are hunting down a ring in like 2040 maybe, you don't have to wait that long because of our friends at Golden Nugget, located at Chestnut and A Street in Center City, Philadelphia. Golden Nugget is a family-owned and operated business since 1987, and they are the place to go if you are getting engaged. They have a wide assortment of rings and wedding bands to fit anyone's style. You can receive a final cleaning and a written appraisal with every engagement ring. And it's not just wedding ring jewelry, Derek, that they have. You can find watches, diamond necklaces. You're a big watch guy, right?
A little bit.
Yeah. You can find those, diamond necklaces, diamond bracelets, earrings, and more. I don't think you fit into any of those other categories. But if you do, head on down to Golden Nugget. Look, you deserve an expert and the best price at Golden Nugget Jewelers, where Philly gets engaged. Head on over to goldennuggetjewelers.com to learn more.
All right. In terms of starting lineups, we actually, like I said, decent news there with Paul George and Tyrese Maxey. You've got Maxey, Eric Gordon, Paul George, Kelly Oubre, and Gershon Yabusele. Should be a slightly more watchable product than we had last night, hopefully.
Yeah. No, that's a better looking lineup than last night.
Yeah.
Sure.
No, and hopefully that's a real chance to compete, a real chance to be, like I said, though that lineup with Maxey and George have been pretty good so far this year, like something like a +6 net rating, which is competitive. Problem is you completely fall off of a cliff, but having both of them in a starting lineup at least gives you a chance to come out here and maybe have a hot shooting night. I know it sounds impossible considering the way this team has shot for pretty much all year, but you have a at least chance to compete, especially with Towns out.
Yeah, no, I think they have a chance to win in part because the key guys
By the
had
way,
a couple
I
nights off.
have to ask, was Vince serious when he thought they were going to win yesterday, or was he like yanking your chain?
It's sometimes hard to tell. If Vince, if you're in the chat, you can let us know. But I think it was one of those things where it was such a far-fetched prediction where he can take like claim for it and be like,
right,
wow, what a prediction if it's right. And then if it's wrong, well, everybody's going to forget it anyway because we all thought
there's no way
they weren't going to do it.
He's
but Vince, we're not going to let you forget. That was a terrible prediction. Even though they cut it to 4 in the fourth quarter, it was fake.
No chance.
I liked Winona saying in the chat that the Sixers need to get engaged like Golden Nugget from the tip tonight. I will say, as much as we are complaining about kind of the general goings on about this team, I wouldn't be surprised if this is a good game tonight, right? The Sixers, they should be in desperation mode. They clearly have a lot of practice playing without Joel at this point. The Knicks, they don't have a lot of practice playing without Karl Anthony Towns. We'll see. But I do expect a more competitive game than we saw last night. It's not like the Knicks are an easy game, but they are a much easier game than the Thunder, just because the Thunder are absolutely loaded and they are a buzzsaw right now. It's really them and Cleveland are just kind of destroying the league right now.
Yeah. No, and the Knicks have been, I want to say, trailing off a little bit. Like they're not quite as consistent as they were earlier on.
They've had a couple normal good team results where they just have have let up. I mean, they got hammered by Oklahoma City the other night. They lost to Detroit the other night at home. That happens, but they have been pretty consistent. You know, Derek, it's interesting. My old colleague, your old colleague as well, we used to work together.
We did. Still do.
James Edwards. Yeah, at another place though. James Edwards, who covers the Knicks now, he had the Knicks splits, and basically the Knicks have been really good against the teams at the bottom of the league. They've been pretty good against the average teams. I don't know exactly where the Sixers fall in, probably in between those two tiers. And against the good teams, they have been terrible. Unfortunately, that's not going to help us tonight.
Yeah, I was going to say, unfortunately, they're playing one of those teams that they have done pretty good against.
Yeah.
No, this is
just pointing it out.
Yeah. If the Knicks play up to their capabilities, even without Towns, you expect them to win, but teams do have off nights. Theoretically, the Sixers could have a hot shooting night. We haven't really seen it all that often here, but yeah. All right, let's get to a couple super chats, and then we can get to Rich's picks. First up, Marcus Blackstock. R.I.P. Bill Walton. The 76ers now have Joel Walton.
Man, R.I.P. Bill Walton.
That one hurt. He was, and look,
universally beloved.
You and I used to cover the draft, myself, literally you, because you covered the Sixers, and for half a decade that meant covering the draft, essentially. And you would stay up late watching a lot of West Coast games, and I had a huge smile on my face whenever I heard him. He was hysterical. I used to always love the people who would take him a little too literally too, and be like, "Man, this guy doesn't know anything." Can you imagine? He's talking about Dallenberg like he's Shaq. It's like, no, that's a bit. He's having fun with you, and you're not getting it.
Yeah, those old games when he was an NBA analyst, he was talking about Sam Dallenberg. I mean, those Pac-12 games, the last few years of Bill Walton's life, when you would watch those late games like those Lonzo Ball UCLA teams. I'm thinking of, and he would have the whole bit about the Conference of Champions. I did think that if you were like a diehard fan of one of those teams, it would be a little bit annoying. Now, I don't know what that's like for a college team to be like, go Washington State basketball or whoever Bill was announcing. But for a neutral just trying to watch some draft prospect and hear Bill make some jokes.
It was great.
R.I.P. Bill Walton.
Funny thing about that comparison is Bill Walton's career basically ended by a navicular bone. Joel Embiid's career started with navicular bone fractures. He has, knock on wood, mostly been okay with that. Not mostly, completely been okay with that injury ever since he returned to play. It has been the other stuff, mostly the knee.
Yeah.
But yeah, sad times. Jay Flo, why doesn't the media push the organization for answers on what is going on?
I'll let you take that one.
I mean, we asked Nick Nurse legitimately every pregame what's going on with Joel. The answers are a lot of times not great. And you can go, I'm sure, Kyle, like I said, allphly.com, he included a bunch of those quotes there from that press conference about Joel Embiid, specifically in his article from earlier today. But he dodges it. There's a limit on how much you can get medically because of rules and whatnot. And it's not like Daryl Morey is just out here being like, hey, do you want any background info? We don't see Daryl Morey at all that often at this time of the year. We don't get access to any of the trainers or the medical people. So in terms of, it can be, until somebody actually wants that information out, it's very easy for the team to prevent that information from getting out. And you would love for them to be a little more direct and a little more honest with what is going on. But like I said, for the most part, on the record, we have access to Nick and not a whole lot else. And Nick, just like you have a limited amount of time in those pre-games, he avoids the answers.
Yeah, and Darkness says that media can't burn bridges. They have to maintain access. Man, it's more just that they're not available. Like, it's
no,
just
like I haven't seen Daryl outside of maybe, I haven't even really passed him in the hallway.
Because burning bridges, I mean, like Kyle and Derek, who cover the team on a daily basis, I mean, they put them on blast on a daily basis as well. So if there were bridges to be burnt.
No, I mean, Rich has been there. Like, we've gotten Doc really pissed off at us with questioning. Like, that's part of the job. Everyone, for the most part, understands that, and we're okay with it. It's just, we ask about Joel and what happened with the foot, and he's like, he had a setback. I don't really know when it happened. And you only get so many follow-up questions in these environments, too.
Money Mar saying, Daryl who? Does he still work here? I will say, Daryl has been, he's been out of mind at this point, out of sight, out of mind. Yeah. I do wonder if we are headed towards, maybe they make a minor move at the trade deadline. Do you remember when they made a minor move at I believe it was the 2018 trade deadline? Or no, they didn't make any moves. Sorry. And Brian Colangelo had a press conference, and he got bombarded by us when we finally got access to him about the whole Markelle Fultz situation, because that had been a complete mystery at that point.
Do you remember who interrupted? There were two people that interrupted that line of questioning. And this was an amazing one because like we were peppering him with questions constantly.
Everybody.
Like it was just one after another. And like Sixers PR just like pulled him out. Like as questions were being asked, just pulled him out and said, all right, the press conference is over. There were two people that sort of like interrupted the flow of the questioning about Markelle Fultz. One of them worked for the team, so you understood that. Do you remember who the other one was?
Yeah, Brian Seltzer, who basically like apologized to us because it was his job to just ask.
Yeah, no hard feelings on that at all.
Generic question, great guy. He was working for the team. Yes, I do know who the other one was. It was Howard Eskin who asked about the trade deadline.
He wanted to know like why they didn't do more on the buyout market or something. Like the number one pick in the draft that you tied a lot of your future to, like literally cannot shoot and get on the basketball court. And he's like, well, what about the buyout options? Are you kidding me?
Well,
read the room, buddy. Read the room.
If you remember, Brian Colangelo is a basketball.
He is a basketball, yeah. So yeah, it is sometimes tough to get answers, especially like I said, if nobody wants that answer out. Sometimes when you get like reports and inside info, it's because somebody wants that information out, and you're not at that point yet.
I think that the league should mandate them to be more transparent, especially with how much gambling goes on nowadays. But yeah, it's been pretty rough on the transparency front.
And I will say, like, not in Daryl's defense, but like most of the time GMs do not speak much at this time of year. There's limited to be gained speaking a month before the trade deadline. They avoid it. This is a unique circumstance. And this is the kind of thing that like Sam Hinkie used to get killed for. Quite frankly, all of the GMs since then have been just as bad at being available. Daryl's usually pretty good. In fact, when there's been trade requests, like with Harden, he has gone on radio and had conversations and honesty that he probably shouldn't have had. But he is like somebody should speak for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. All right. Speaking of gambling, let's go on to a Gambling Rich.
Gambling Rich. Bet365 pregame picks tonight. You can head over to the Bet365 app to make your picks. Bree, let's put those up there right now. I'm going to go with old reliable, Derek. I don't think I've done a podcast with you in a while, but Yabu 2+3s. It's my favorite bet. I love it. Now, the fact that Towns is not playing, I don't know how that changes it that much tonight, but Yabu's going to be playing a lot of center tonight. No Joel, no Drummond. I think Yabu gets there as well. And we got the family reunion going on down there. There's going to be a ton of Knicks fans, as people in the chat are talking about. Maybe Derek and I will mute the game for that reason. But I like Mikal, who had a very good game the other night against Detroit, to get over 20 points as Devon cheers from his very good seats, I imagine.
Yeah. Yabu has made 2 or more threes in 3 of the last 5 games and something like 7 of the last 10 or something like that, especially with Drummond out, with Embiid out. He's been playing big minutes. He's been playing a lot as a small ball 5. I think that is probably a pretty good bet. Mm-hmm. My only concern with Mikal is, will the game be competitive enough long enough for him to get enough minutes to drop 20 plus? We will see how that goes.
Riches. I like that, Jason. I like that.
Got to come up with something. I do feel like repeating it might not be the way, but there's got to be something we can come up with.
Well, maybe we can find an emoji or whatever our caricatures are with me doing the gambling stuff.
You got any
gambling givens? You
got a prediction here for tonight?
Do I have a prediction? My guess is a loss, but I think it's pretty competitive. Would be my guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hope you're right. I would like a competitive game. I'd like a win.
I would love a win so we could spend an hour just having fun, talking about a basketball game. But come on, PG. Come on, Tyrese. Come on, whoever the hell's playing on the bench. Keep it close. Give us something to talk about. Come on. We all sat through that game last night. We deserve a reward. Everybody in the chat, yes. You deserve a reward. We deserve some decent basketball tonight. ESPN game. So I think we're probably going to get a little bit of a late start here. But, maybe they send those Knicks fans up the turnpike. Sad. That would be nice.
Oh, that'll probably be a big Knicks contingent in there because the tickets are available for this team right now, and they always travel. That's a point I hadn't even thought of.
Jeannie thinks it's a win. Jeannie often thinks it's a win, but I love Jeannie's positivity.
Appreciate you, Jeannie. All right, I think that will do it. This has, again, been the PHLY Sixers pregame show presented by Bet365. From Rich, Bree, and myself, thank you for tuning in, and we will see you after the game.
Enjoy the game.
We all silly like the mayor.